received a question on Instagram from Alyssa, and here it is. Hey, Andy, I'm looking to open an IRA with Vanguard, but don't know if I should choose a Roth or traditional. Do you have any advice? Alyssa, thanks for reaching out on Instagram. If you guys want to ask a question like Alyssa, you can connect with me on Instagram at AndyHillMKM or leave a voicemail at marriagekidsandmoney.com/voicemail. It's always fun to hear your voices, especially since this is a podcast. So you could choose to do that or not, whatever you want to do. Anyway, Alyssa, this is a great question, and congratulations on either starting your investing journey or expanding your investing portfolio. And to help me answer your question today, I am happy to be joined by author and certified financial planner, Echo Huang. Echo helps the country's top executives and entrepreneurs take the complexity out of their finances and give them the confidence to follow their dreams and achieve their goals. Welcome to the show, Echo.
Hi, Andy. I'm thrilled to be on your show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad to have you here and help us all learn and improve. So let's answer Alyssa's question together here. How can Alyssa decide between the Roth and the traditional IRA?
Yeah, this is actually a common question, especially for younger investors. And I would say first, I would like to explain the key difference between the two. And I think it's the timing of paying taxes is the big difference. So for traditional IRA, you get a tax deduction on your contribution. So you are pretty much saving taxes now. But when you invest it and grow, someday when you take it out, normally after 59 and a half, you pay taxes at that time at the tax rate upon distribution. So that's for traditional IRA is defer your taxes into future. Roth IRA, on the other hand, is different, is you are actually using after-tax dollars to make the contribution. That means you are paying taxes now. The good news is when you invest the money in your Roth IRA and it grows into the future, for example, when you take it out, when you retire after 59 and a half, all the earnings will be also tax-free. So it's just not the contribution originally. So just imagine the difference is the timing. So people will say, well, which one would be more beneficial for me for Alyssa's situation? The answer is always depends, right? Because we don't know her situation, but I will certainly lay out several factors I believe are very important to consider to make that decision. The first the factor is trying to decide your income level and the future tax rates. Well, you need to do a comparison of today versus the time you take it out, generally after 59 and a half. If you think future income level will be lower and your tax bracket, when we say tax bracket is that, remember the highest tax rate that you pay, remember it's progressive tax rate, that's the amount tax rate you should compare to today's tax rate. And certainly if you believe your tax rates will go up during retirement compared to today, it's better to pay lower taxes today, right, at the lower rate, and also at the certain rate that you know, because long-term is not very clear to most people. So during retirement, I think, so it's important to do a tax rate comparison. If it's higher into the future, Roth is better choice than traditional IRA. I think the second factor I want people to kind of think about is diversification. When I say diversification, it's not talking about investment diversification. We are talking about diversification of potential income sources during retirement. So when you're retired, you will get income from different sources like Social Security, pension, annuity, and you may need to withdraw from your 401k IRA, right? And because they are taxed differently. So I would want people like Alyssa think about potentially you have your investments in all three buckets that they are taxed differently. The first bucket is tax-free bucket. So the Roth IRA and Roth 401k should be in that bucket. That means in the future, when you withdraw, 100% income tax-free, federal and state, okay? The second bucket, I call it tax deferred bucket. That is traditional IRA, traditional 401k that you use pre-tax dollar to put in your 401k because you delay paying taxes. So you will have to pay taxes when you withdraw during retirement. The third bucket is I call them taxable investments. That is investment account you can open in your own name or jointly with your somebody or your spouse. Or you get more sophisticated with your estate planning, you set up a revocable living trust. So because taxable investments are taxed ongoing, if you utilize capital gains, you pay capital gain tax every year. So they all have different ways. The reason why I want people to think about that diversification of income sources in the future is because tax laws can change very quickly. So if you have money in all three buckets, when somebody is the president who decided to raise the tax rate by 5 to 10% during like 4-year or 8-year period, you can say, you know what, thank goodness I have $250,000 in Roth. I'm just gonna take out 50 grand from my Roth, maybe just a little bit from my IRA, and I can manage it that way to not to get to very high tax bracket. And of course, that would affect how Social Security income is being taxed as well. And that, so that's the second factor people should consider. I think also the other factor is your expectation about how our country will handle this rising deficit, because tax laws can change when the government decides it's the time to print more money. Yeah. Or raise taxes to, collect more taxes to pay, reduce deficit. So if you feel like the next, during your retirement, that the government may potentially do that, and especially for people who are closer to retirement, we are predicting the next decade. If I have to predict is we have temporary tax cut that may be changed rather quickly because the deficit for this country is projected next year to be as large as entire country's GDP without counting the further coronavirus relief package. So if you want my opinion about it, is the next decade, we could probably see income taxes going up. So those, I think, are main factors for people to decide. Personally, I want to share with you that I have done rather pretty good tax planning in the past 20 years because I took the advantage of 3 years. I started business 3 times. And every time when I started business, my income was extremely low. So you should think about either converting some IRA money to Roth so that you have some tax-free money growing for you. When you have an unusual year, such as this year, many people may have lower income this year. Well, let's squeeze lemons and make lemonade and treat it as an opportunity to convert some IRA. It doesn't matter, based on each tax bracket, you're like, I don't want to go over paying 20 some percent. You can get it lower. So tax bracket management is a great opportunity for people to accumulate more tax-free dollars in Roth IRA or at work in the Roth 401k. And I do want to help Alyssa a little bit more by explaining there are some income limits. If you consider about, if you decided that, wow, Roth IRA seems good to me, especially for some people, they already have 401k, the employer's matching in the future will be taxed. And you think about, you already have some money that will be taxed, that's considered tax deferred. It may be really good for people to diversify, to have Roth IRA if their incomes are below the IRS limit. Quickly, I can tell you that for a single person this year, if your modified adjusted gross income is below 124,000, you can put in 6,000 maximum. You can put in 7,000 if you are age 50 and older. So that's for single filer. And for married filing jointly, if your modified adjusted gross income is below 196,000, you can maximize your contribution of 6,000 or the 7,000. So it's really good for people to know that's a really good option to complement the company's 401k plan, so they can choose to do both. And for the people who said, well, I prefer to delay taxes, well, traditional IRA, unlike Roth IRA, there are no income limits, but you do need to follow the income restriction to calculate how much can be deducted on your tax return. So when it's deducted, that's when you can save taxes right now, right? So quickly, single filer, if you make less than 65,000, you can fully deduct it. But of course, between 65 and 75,000, you can calculate partial deduction. For married filing jointly, if you may have less than 104,000 or less, you get a full deduction. This is in the situation where you don't have, no, you have 401k plan. That's why you have to follow this. But if you don't, you and your spouse do not have any employer sponsor plan, they are fully deductible. So I just want, Alyssa to have kind of better kind of framework in terms of income level to make that decision.
I think that's great. So let's talk about, let's assume Alyssa, we don't know all the details about Alyssa, but let's assume that she is already investing in her 401k and it's a traditional 401k at work. Based on your thoughts there about tax diversification, and if she's below that income limit, would a Roth maybe make sense to have some diversification?
I would, especially if she's much earlier in her career. So if people, in general, I would say, younger investors, they are at the beginning of their career, their income will go up in the future, and they may not qualify to put anything in Roth IRA anymore if they don't have the choice at work to make Roth 401k contribution. So this is just kind of thinking in general, younger people will benefit more from funding Roth IRA for retirement than people at their peak earning years, like 55 and 60 when they are at the peak of their career. So that's in general. Another thing I mentioned is definitely, it's kind of like buying insurance to protect future tax hike. Don't feel bad if you bought some insurance, you don't have to use it. We all have some kind of insurance that we never use. I hope I never use. Just think of it that way when you look at tax diversification. You are having something, you pay taxes at the rate you know exactly to help you protect from future tax hike. Even sometimes 3% to 5% tax rate increase. That could be pretty dramatic. IRS is going to take a big chunk of your lifetime accumulation. At some point, you cannot avoid paying taxes anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that things are going this year, there's a lot being borrowed and it's going to have to be paid back somehow. Well, let's talk to Alyssa about maybe other ways outside of the IRA where she can build wealth. I know that's a big movement that you are on, Echo. So talk to us about other ways that folks can build their wealth outside of the IRA.
Especially for people who are working on, either catch up because they didn't do enough in their 20s and now they get to their 30s or 40s. I really urge people, in addition to taking advantage of employer matching in the 401k and do the Roth IRA, do your best to also invest in the taxable account. And of course, you have a guest here talking about HSA. I'm a big believer because of triple tax benefits. I maximize mine every single year and try to stay healthy and not to use any money from there. Right. And so for people like Alyssa, I think it's really important if you're able to save more. Think of your other goals. That's shorter term or intermediate term. I'm talking about if you are planning to buy a home, or someday you want to start a business, or your kids, they need to go to college or other things, that you may need to tap into the asset before 59 and a half. So it's really important to have some investments that can grow, outperform what you can earn in your savings, and CDs. So what I would say is first, make sure you have emergency fund in the checking and savings that covers at least 6 months of your essential living expenses. And then start looking at your goal 5 years to 10 years and put some money to work opening account very similarly at these institutions, for example, like Vanguard, TD Ameritrade, and you can actually start investing in something that's not that long term, but you can minimize the risk by choosing, for example, more short-term bonds, you know, and short-term intermediate bonds depending on your time frame. But you don't have to put all your money in stock market because certain account has different time horizons. So personally, I always advocate you need to have 3 buckets of money. You need to invest with based on your own time horizon, your future withdrawal needs, and of course, your tax situation to choose where to put more money over time. And your tax situation can change, so it should be reviewed every year.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. And, this has been a really tough year for a lot of people. Sometimes, as you mentioned, the emergency fund, it can be as simple as that, too, for folks, especially if they've had a rough year. If they're looking to sort of reset, we're talking at the end of the year here, if they can sort of reset and look at making 2021 their best year yet, what's a good first step for people just to get back on track?
We do have to go back to the financial planning principle. And I cannot say enough how important setting a budget and sticking to it, how important that is, especially during pandemic. So we all have to look at, if you don't have a plan, it's a perfect time to create one. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It could be something just as simple of like, how do I get to having enough emergency fund so that will provide me security and offers me better opportunities? Because when you're talking about job market and the change in the industry, we must be adaptable. When you don't have that safety net emergency fund, you can't just move to another state and take a better job or start a business during this time, right? So I think that's really important for people to review their budget, create a bare bone budget. Personally, I use mint.com to track my expenses, and
Me too.
I like it. I mean, I've been using it for years now, and I recommend that to a lot of people, including my clients. And so do a really good job there, trim the fat on the budget. Anything discretionary, well, this is time to cut back. Regardless how much income you earn, I think it's really critical to understand how you direct your resources towards your short-term, intermediate term, and long-term goals. And the second thing I really want people to remember is we got to go back to the principles of investing. There are probably at least 2. I will mention 2 today. The first one, of course, diversification. We all know that, it's probably not worth it to gamble and put all your eggs in one basket. Let's not pick like 5 stock and just hope they will help you retire. So diversification means globally. So US stock market is about 58% of the entire world. And I know we probably have home buyers feeling a lot more secure investing in only US companies. However, do not forget, in the future, there are some companies outside of US could be doing better than in the US. And we are facing all kinds of uncertainties in this country. So the next decade, who knows? Some companies outside of US could be doing really well because they're adaptable to technology, right? So I want people to think global when it comes to investing, not just, having a few stocks and hope. And of course, second principle, I believe, is the time in the stock market is more important than timing of the market. And you probably would agree that very few people could predict the stock market well and just decide when to get back in. And you know what? The studies show many, many times that individual investors do not do well and they don't even earn close to market return because of that problem is they emotional investing. And S&P 500, if you just leave the money there from 2000, to this year, August 9th, 2020, by JP Morgan study, if you just invest in S&P 500 and don't even move, your rate of return would be above 6% per year.
Yeah.
But then if you miss the best 10 days, it goes down to 2% per year.
Wow.
So it's only 10 best days over 20 years and 7 months. So I just want people to kind of let that thing sink in, and the money that you have designed, proper allocation to focus on your long term. A lot of people is long term saving, investment goal for retirement. They need to be designed to invest for the long term, and we need to have the growth perspective. So stock market has to be very important part of your your investment portfolio. Of course, you can tweak it by combining bonds and real estate and cash to adjust the proper risk for your own situation.
Yeah, you have to be right twice if you're jumping in and out of the market, right?
It's
You gotta
very
jump out at the
difficult.
right time and you jump back in at the right time. So that makes it very, very difficult. So
Yeah.
Echo, I understand you have a new book out there, and it could probably really help people with this wealth management situation. Tell us a little bit about the book and then where people can find it.
Yeah, I am so pleased to tell people about my new book, Own Your Future, One Woman's Story of Immigration and Financial Freedom. I came to the US at age 20 alone with $800 in my pocket. And today, I am very proud to announce that I have achieved my American dream, because now my company, I started 5.5 years ago. We manage more than $120 million for 76 clients in this country. I think a few of them overseas. And so the main purpose, the first purpose of writing this book is to educate and inspire more people to start planning now, regardless how much money they have, in order to own their future. Because I can explain how I have done it, and the struggles I had to go through and mistakes I made, and I followed some life principles that have really benefit myself. And then most of the I think most of the chapters focus on helping people understand the framework of financial planning from my point of view as a fiduciary financial planner who looks out for your best interest. And I think it's really important for people to understand, if they do not feel comfortable doing it on their own, it's extremely important to learn how to look for the right financial advisor. I have one chapter about that. And also learn to manage their emotional, how would I say, we are biases, right? We are biased as humans. And there is one chapter talking about how to overcome behavioral biases in order to create successful investing experience. And I have examples and cases to help people identify and check themselves so that they don't make that crazy mistake by buying high and selling low all the time. So I would love to have you check out my personal website. That is ownyourfuture.guru. Guru is Guru. So Own Your Future is the book. Guru, because I really want to be your personal financial guru, even though I may not be able to serve everybody. So please feel free to check out my blog there and connect with me on major social media. If you are interested in my firm's service, of course, check out my company website. That's Echo Wealth management.com, and you can watch a short video to see how we provide services using Echo Dashboard.
Excellent. Well, I will definitely put those links in the show notes for everybody to check out. Just to let you know, Echo, fiduciary is our favorite F word on this show. So thank you very much for being here and telling us about the importance of that. And everybody, thank you so much for checking it out. Ownyourfuture.guru if you want to check out the book. Echo, thank you so much for your time today.
You're very welcome. I really want to commend you for the great job you have done, and very interesting podcast episodes. I've listened to several this week. So
Oh, thank you so much, Echo.
it's great.